Yeah, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. You know, this kind of shit really pisses me off. When people go out there with half a story, half cocked, pulling some shit straight out of their ass and trying to make it stick, stirring up a bunch of controversy for no fucking reason at all, something that is completely irrelevant. Or is it relevant? We'll get into all of it. But going off of some paperwork as if this is like definitive. Case in point, the aftermath surrounding George Floyd and all the shit that's starting to stir up in all of this now that this trial's getting ready to jump off. All the pretrial proceedings and everything that's going on. You have to really understand courtroom procedures, motions that are filed and all of that to really get the full picture. You got a lot of armchair psychiatrists, a lot of armchair CSI investigators, a lot of armchair lawyers out there, people that don't really know much of what they're talking about. I'm not saying that I'm a lawyer, but guess what? I have a lot of experience with the law because I worked as a law clerk, I worked in the law library, and I was a jailhouse lawyer. I filed a lot of motions. I filed writs of habeas corpus, 1983 lawsuits, many grievances over the years. I've studied jurisprudence. I've done all that. I've looked at the procedures, the steps and the process that one must go through in order to create the trial itself, all the preliminaries and all of that. It's a process. It's a long process that requires a lot of man hours to look through a lot of these books, to cite cases, case law, and everything like that. In the case of George Floyd being a confidential informant, does it really matter if he was or if he wasn't? That's really in the eye of the beholder, to be honest with you. It doesn't change the fact that he died on the scene. We'll get into all those details as well because those are starting to fly around as well. Through the same sources, the same outlets, a lot of right-wing type of conspiracy type people like out of InfoWars and places like that have basically gone out there and said that George Floyd is a rat or a snitch without knowing the full story. The one thing that I could tell you that is fact is that there was a motion for disclosure that was filed by the defense attorney for Derek Chauvin and the gang on August the 27th, 2020, a motion for disclosure regarding several things that they want to know about George Floyd personally. On Twitter, I seen somebody post the document saying George Floyd is a snitch. And he shows half of the paper. This guy doesn't even show the whole document, doesn't cite where he got it from. You know that kind of shit that really drives me up the fucking wall when people put bogus paperwork out there? Or half the paperwork or parts of it, but never the full story because they're trying to sell you some kind of agenda that they are pushing. The only reason why they do it that way, and it always sends up a red flag with me. So it took some digging. I had to do some digging because you ain't going to find this in a Google search, but I'm going to guide you through this whole thing because at some point in time, this is going to pick up some wind, some speed, and other people are going to start talking about it. There's already another YouTube channel out there and not even related to this genre that's already talking about this. George Floyd was an informant. He's already put it out there. He's already convicted the man as an informant. So like I said, I did a lot of digging. And I found the motion in its entirety straight from a government website. I've listed the site in the comments section. I'll list it in the description, but I'll definitely put it in the comments so that you could check it out for yourself. You can see that I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. This is a legitimate motion that was filed in the court. And it breaks down like this. It's a motion that was filed to the judge, the Honorable Peter Cahill, judge of the District Court The defendant will move for an order as followed: disclosure of body cam, video and audio from Minneapolis Police Department, case number from the arrest of Mr. Floyd on May 6, 2019. Number 2, and this is the part we're talking about, any and all files pertaining to Mr. Floyd's cooperation as an informant, snitch, and they emphasize snitch, for the Minneapolis Police, FBI, or any other state or federal law enforcement agency either before or after May 6, 2019. This includes information from ongoing and closed investigations, documents, or other information prepared as part of the vetting process to become an informant, cooperator, and any other police report, case materials where Mr. Floyd worked as a cooperator, CI, CRI, concerned citizen, informant, or other status. It goes on from there. Whole bunch of other stuff. If he's a gang member, blah, 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 and more blah, and blah, and some more blah. So some of the responses to this man's tweet was that this was a doctored, fake document. It's not real. It's bogus paperwork. But it's a real document. But does this document actually confirm that George Floyd was an informant, a snitch, a rat, whatever you want to call him? No. I'm telling you, no. It is simply a motion for disclosure. It's a motion of discovery is what it's commonly called in California. A motion to, like an in-camera review, to reveal the identity of a confidential informant, of which this case, there's really no need for a confidential informant because we know all the facts. We've seen all the footage. Everything that has happened surrounding this case is all as plain as day. So this motion for disclosure was filed by the defense. Now, you know when somebody files a motion, whether it be the prosecution or the defense in any side of the proceeding, there's always going to be a response from the other side. I've listed to the response of the prosecutor, Keith Ellison. Here's the site right here. You can find his response. It proves that this is a legitimate document because it comes straight from another court website. His response is that there is no facts to support the allegation that George Floyd was a confidential informant. But Keith Ellison also says if he was a confidential informant, it's not even relevant to the case. And not only that, he cited some statutes to how the status of a confidential informant, the identity of a confidential informant cannot be revealed. So the motion for disclosure was filed. A response or rebuttal to that motion was filed and returned by Keith Ellison on September the 9th, 2020, this month. So now what we do is we play the waiting game. We see what the judge says. If the judge allows it, then the Minneapolis Police Department, FBI, and everybody else under court order, well, the FBI, I don't know if they really have to do it. They might have to go through a federal court to do it. But the Minneapolis Police and any other municipality or whatever that has information pertaining to the possibility of George Floyd being a confidential informant, they must present that evidence to the court. But again, what do you think? Do you think that it is relevant or not? Me personally, I have my feelings about people that are rats and informants and stuff like that. In a situation like this, it's a real tough one. Being a person that's been in the streets as long as I have, it's a real tough one to call, especially because of all the emotion and everything that is surrounding this case. The whole fucking country's in flames. Not only from wildfires, but from riots and protests and everything else. One would have to ask, would you be willing to support this, going forward with this, in order to reveal these details? Because what else could it possibly bring to light? Could they be possibly digging themselves a hole in this one by saying that, wow, we knew he was an informant. Were they trying to get rid of him? This is the stuff that could also be used against them if it is granted. The prosecution can throw it back at him and say, so he was a confidential informant. He must have known something, or you must have been trying to get rid of him for some reason. Why? They can flip it all the way around. Essentially, these guys can dig themselves a hole deeper and put themselves in some more hot water legally in that regard. So you've seen the government website that shows you this original motion of a disclosure, and you see the response from the prosecutor. There has been nothing since that time that has confirmed that George Floyd is an informant, period. And that's what really pisses me off. Because you got InfoWars, you got all these people, you got some of these other right-wingers that are on Twitter that swear to you that he is an informant. You see how quick putting a jacket on somebody without knowing all the facts can really cause a lot of fucking problems? Bogus paperwork or people not understanding what they're reading or even have a clue to what they're talking about. That's what I've always stood upon. Sticking to the facts. Stick to what's known. Previous videos that I've done, I have never labeled anybody or anything like that. I stuck to what was known, what was written about, what the police report said, what somebody's paperwork said. Even when I was checking people's paperwork in pretrial detention for my federal case, I've read numerous PSIs from people in there. In the CDC, I've read, I don't know how many 128Gs. People used to depend on me for that stuff because, you know, you got a lot of homies that can't really read. But I can read. I could read real well. And I know all the legal jargon. I've read motions. I've read responses to motions. I've read appeals, all that stuff. I could start to read an appeal, a response to an appeal, and I could tell the dude from the first opening sentence if he's going to get denied or granted, just by the language. I don't even have to read the whole document. Not saying I'm anything special, but just I've spent a lot of time doing that. It was like a hobby of mine. You got nothing but time on your hands in there. So when somebody presents something like this to me and said, what's up with this, man? George Floyd's a rat. Really? And I presented these documents to some of the people in my inner circle within the PBR car and told them I'm going to be reporting on this, but I'm going to be fair. I'm going to dig and I'm going to investigate on this. And that's what I did. So I was able to find that response from Keith Ellison. That's the part of the story that these people ain't telling you. They're not telling you about the response from Keith Ellison. They're not telling you that this is simply a motion. This is not in a document that is basically confirming that this is even the truth. And furthermore, why would it even be relevant? What does it have to do with anything? Some people would say that, well, maybe that's why they killed him. Because he knew something. I mean, we have pretty much confirmed that he probably knew Derek Chauvin, or at least worked together with him. If he was working as a CI, what did he dig up on Derek Chauvin or any of the other ones? But Derek Chauvin shows up later. So I don't know. But that's not all. They're even playing optical gymnastics with the footage, the leaked footage that came out. When was it? What was the guy's name? Thomas Lane, when he went up to the car and he opened the door on him? If you look closely, you could see something in George Floyd's mouth. Something white. He turns his head, and then he turns back around, and it's gone. Automatically, everybody starts jumping to conclusions and assumptions that he had fentanyl in his mouth. Or methamphetamine, or both. Whether he did or he didn't, nobody knows. Why? Because Lane didn't do the Pac-Man routine and grab him by the throat like in Colors and pull him out and tell him to spit it out. He obviously wasn't doing magnificent police work because he didn't even notice it. But it was clear as day when you look on the camera. So we don't know what it was. He could have been chewing some Wrigley's spearmint gum. And he got so flustered and frustrated, he swallowed it. I mean, shit, I've done that before. Swallowed my gum for whatever reason. I used to chew gum while I jogged. I used to jog for freaking miles, man. I used to chew gum when I did. I remember one time I swallowed it, man. It was stuck. It was lodged in my throat. I had to stop running. So nobody can automatically assume that, oh, he had fentanyl in his mouth. That's what it was. You don't know what the fuck he had in his mouth. Could have been chewing on a piece of paper. He could have been chewing on a toenail. You don't know what the hell he had in his mouth. You have no clue. But this is the kind of shit that really irks me. You know what I mean? The man's dead. Whether he died from fentanyl or he died from a knee to the back, all that's going to come out in the wash in the courts. But all this misinformation, it's just like, I hate it when it happens. It really it just drives me up the wall. I've seen people get straight stabbed, booked, damn near killed over a bogus wire, over an allegation, over somebody saying, hey, man, this dude's got bad paperwork. Come to find out the dude accusing him is the one that had bad paperwork. I've said it before, man, in the past, like when that Independent TV guy came out and they were calling him a chomo. Show me the proof. Show me the government website. Same thing with Mighty Mouse. I want a government website that shows me this information. I'm not going to take your word for it. We were taught that way back in the days, man. You don't take anybody's word for it until you see that shit in black and white or until you know for a fact that dude pointed you out in court. Of which you could provide all the legal documentation for that, by the way. There's so many things that are swarming around this whole deal. Come to find out that George Floyd might have gotten one of his cases dismissed from out there in Houston. Some dirty-ass cop has got over 400 and something bogus arrests. When he arrested George Floyd, he said that he went down there to buy some crack, gave somebody some money. That guy handed George Floyd the money. Bam, that was it. They rushed him. George Floyd was all about his innocence the whole time. He stuck to that. I'm innocent. This is bullshit. They're framing me. And because this cop has so many bogus and false arrests, fake arrests on so many people, they sent George Floyd out a letter so that he can go back to court and get his case dismissed. But he never got the letter because he died. They sent it to a Houston address. Some people would say, well, that's probably the only case that guy didn't plant evidence on or make up as a fake case. That's irrelevant. That guy did so many people dirty. It's not what it is. It's what it looks like. He could have caught George Floyd straight in the act of murder, man, and he's getting off scot-free because of all that other shit. That's why if you in law enforcement, you better be on the total up and up because your karma's going to catch up to you at some point. Look what happened in the Rampart Division. L.A. had to throw out I don't know how many cases. I remember I had a gang of homies that were going home behind that crash team. So there's that. Regardless of whatever George Floyd's criminal record was or whatnot, doesn't change anything, in my opinion. But this one right here, I felt that somebody should clear it up before it blows up into a big old giant conspiracy theory that's completely irrelevant. There is no document that has definitively proved that George Floyd was an informant. Whether he was or he wasn't is irrelevant to what happened to him in the end. Whether he was or he wasn't, you be the judge of that. But at the end of the day, regardless of how he died, you got fucking 3 cops with their knees all up on his body. pinning his ass to the ground. Regardless if he was resisting, if he was freaking out, hyperventilating. Because, I mean, the dude, I seen the whole leaked footage. It was pretty vicious. He was freaking out. Whether it's from post-traumatic stress from prior negative experiences with the cops or not, who knows? Whatever the case was, where they're the pinning him on the ground with standard procedure with them, whatever. Bottom line is when he was completely laying out flat and he was not resisting anymore, they should have picked him up. I mean, fuck, there's 3 of them. It's not what it is, it's what it looks like. It looked to me like it was a knee to the neck, knee to the back from 2 different cops. And if he was, like I said, if he was on fentanyl and methamphetamine, that just further adds to a heart explosion. But they said he died of asphyxiation, so whether that's true or not, it'll all come out in the court case. Real soon, the judge will answer this motion and decide to grant it or deny it. In regards to the confidential informant aspect, the body cam, I didn't even know George Floyd was arrested on May 6, 2019 for possession for sales or something like that. I had no idea. Never heard about that until I read that motion. But whatever's clever, you know, like I've said before, the main thing is this bogus paperwork type shit. I don't approve of anybody putting fake information out on anybody. I don't do it. And I don't approve of it when it's done to me or anybody else, especially this man right here lost his life. So when you see this come across your DM, your Twitter account, Facebook, or you see a video out there where this guy swears up and down that fucking George Floyd is an informant, make sure you correct his ass and you direct him my way, and I'll set him straight. Because I'm the paperwork reading genius, enthusiast. I love reading legal paperwork like this. And I'll break it all the way down accurately and fair. And I'll give you an honest opinion on the interpretation of it, what it says. The law is open to multiple different forms of interpretation, which is true. Something can be plain as day, but then some circuit judge somewhere could say, nah, I'm not granting this. But what I'm telling you is it's a motion for disclosure. It's not a confirmation or anything like that says the man was an informant. But like I said, man, you be the judge if that really matters or not. I'm just clearing the air for the guy and telling you this dude has not been confirmed to be a rat or a snitch or a CI or anything like that. This is some bogus bullshit that was put out there as a motion. It hasn't been granted. It hasn't been denied. It's still in process. Of course, you'll probably never know anyways what the outcome is. You already know what it is, and you heard it right here. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, not sugarcoated, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality, and I'm out.